Phase 3 begins with a crisis. And that is after what I think of as a marvelous century, the century of the 1700s, probably the age of enlightenment, when the sciences are maturing and there's great vigorous debate about all of the major arguments for the existence of God, the arguments against the existence of God, and these arguments are all brought to a very high level of sophistication. Certain leading theologians reach a conclusion that is very sobering and distressing to them. That is the realization that in their judgment, that the arguments for the existence of God don't work. Don't take it on faith from me. Look at the arguments yourself, obviously. There's lots of interesting stuff to be done here, but there are lots of signs that by the time we get to the latter part of the 1700s, the most forward-thinking of the theologians and those who are vested in a religious philosophical outlook are realizing that this phase 2 strategy isn't going to save the day for religion. That the arguments that they have developed for the existence of God have holes in them that don't seem to be patchable, that the various arguments that the critics of religion have been developed seem rather impregnable and very persuasive and powerful. And so there's a problem here. It's a very severe problem. We no longer have the intellectual authority based on revelation and tradition. We don't have the political muscle to be able to enforce our will any longer, and it seems like that having adopted the tools of reason, that we're losing that particular battle as well. And the trend then seems fairly clear. If all of our tools, intellectual, moral, and political, are being taken away from us, and science is growing in prestige and coming up with naturalistic explanations, and religion is being pushed into the background of life, where in a generation or 2 generations or perhaps a century is religion going to be? The trend lines seem to be fairly unmistakable to thinkers at the end of the 18th century, and that was that religion was on its way out and it would be a thoroughly naturalistic understanding of the universe that was on its way in. But if you are invested in and committed to a religious philosophical way of looking at the world, that then is a crisis. And so the most forward-thinking then of the theologians of the late 18th century are setting their minds to how can we salvage religion in the modern world? How can we make religion intellectually reputable in a world that is increasingly secular, naturalistic, pro-reason, pro-observation, distrustful of the traditional religious and church institutions here. I want to cite one name here, whom I think of as an important figure in this transition here in a major work called The Critique of Pure Reason, which was published in its first edition in 1781. So the timing is quite right here. Latter part of the 18th century here. In this major work, The Critique of Pure Reason, Kant has a famous line that is variously translated, but I'm going to go with the translation that works best for my argumentative purpose here. Kant is a modern thinker in that he is friendly towards science, but he is also a traditional thinker in that he is very respectful of traditional religious institutions, particularly traditional religious beliefs in the existence of God, the immortality of the soul, and the kind of morality that typically has gone with traditional morality. All of that, or traditional religion, I mean, all of that he sees as being under threat in the modern world and in danger of being displaced entirely from human life. So in his great work, The Critique of Pure Reason, the famous line that I'm alluding to is to say that if we are going to make a place for religion in the modern world, it's fundamentally an epistemological battle that has to be fought. At the root of the modern way of thinking is the centrality, the importance, the efficacy, the power of reason. And so if we are going to have religion in the modern world, it is reason that has to be limited, put in its place, boxed, have the underpinnings of it undercut so that space can be made whatever sort of space is possible for some sort of religion in the modern world. And the famous line is, therefore, I have found it necessary to deny reason to make room for faith. And in the Critique of Pure Reason, which I'm using here as a benchmark, landmark work on the intellectual horizon here, one of the major projects of the Critique of Pure Reason is precisely to do that, to show that reason has certain kinds of limitations, to undercut its pretensions in Kant's view of being able to answer all of life's important questions, philosophical questions, and thereby salvaging some space for faith, faith in traditional religious doctrine, recast for the modern world. So what we have here is then another strategic shift epistemologically, right? No longer is it simply a matter of imposing by intellectual and political authority, right, a religious way of looking at the world. No longer is it a matter of trying to find a compatibility of method between reason and traditional religious belief in what I'm calling phase two here. Instead, we are going to the position as announced by Kant here that the battle is a reason versus faith battle, that it's an either or, and that one has to choose sides in a polarized debate. If we go with reason, reason is going to squeeze out faith, but if we're going to have preserve any amount of faith, we have to put the squeeze on reason. Right now, phase three, I want to move on to the next major thinker in this tradition. This is the one I'm going to single on. There are some transition figures here. A Danish thinker by the name of Søren Kierkegaard